Hello. Long time no see, no talk, no bitches, no money, no future. A lot has changed since the last real video that I've made. I graduated from college. I am in a really bad mental state, and that's why we're making a video today. Because I watched a video earlier today that I made on YouTube, and I was like, wow, I was really living my life then. I'm trying to live my life again. The last quarter of school really burned me out, so bad. I developed a very bad phone and screen addiction during that quarter. That's still a problem, and so because of that, I deleted a bunch of social media from my phone, including disabling YouTube, because I would have a bad habit of going to the toilet, scrolling on YouTube Shorts, which is the worst YouTube app worst social media app to scroll on, and just get stuck in that position for sometimes 10 minutes, 20 minutes, sometimes an hour, actually many times an hour. So I kind of stepped away from social media, not entirely, but just gave myself a little distance. But now I'm you know what, I really liked that very short part of my life earlier this year or last year when I was making videos consistently. I wish that I could have continued doing that, but I had to stop because of school, and now I'm trying to restart. Sorry for babbling on. Let's get to the point. Today we are making birth control pill packet cover. A cover, out of felt, that's gonna look like a Pop Tart. So a Pop Tart felt cover for a birth control pill packet. And even though this video isn't actually a craft tutorial, it's a pretty easy project to do if you just watch and follow along. So these are the materials that you'll need if you're trying to replicate what I'm doing. You'll need felt, scissors, a birth control pill packet, or at least know the size and general shape of them, a paper and pencil or pen so that you know the shapes that you're tracing out, embroidery thread and a needle, and then also some beads. Those ones are optional. The beads are for using as sprinkles on top of the icing, or you can also just make more two-dimensional sprinkles by just sewing short lines of the embroidery thread without beading anything through the thread. So it's up to you. I think that covers it, pretty sure. And as always, here are the timestamps. Pause if you need to. We have our pill packet, and now we need our felt, whatever colors you want to make your Pop Tart. I want to go with the classic colors of a tannish breading and a pink icing, so I'm going to get those colors. Okay, then we'll need a piece of paper. That way we can draw the shapes that we'll be using to trace and cut the felt with, so that everything is the same shape and nothing's wonky and everything looks good and organized. So first, I'm going to use a pencil and just trace out the pill package. Okay, so for the pill package tracing, we're gonna use this shape actually to make our icing. So the icing's we're gonna cut out the felt to be the shape, and then we're gonna kind of make waves in the felt. But I don't need to draw that because it doesn't need to be exact or anything. I just want the waves to follow this general traced shape and not be too much smaller or any bigger at all than the shape that we just traced. And then we're going to trace out the pill package again. Sorry, am I saying pill package? I mean packet. I don't really know what to call this. Pill packet? And then we're going to go in and kind of draw it a little bit bigger around the edge for the seam allowance so that this will fit inside. Because if we make it this big, this is going to be a very tight fit. But if we make it a little bit bigger, it could fit inside, and also that way the breading will be bigger than the icing, and you could see the breading beneath the icing. I'm hoping all of this is making sense. I feel like it makes sense to me. So I'm just gonna use a ruler to make it even. Okay, and then we're just gonna round out the edges. Just like how a Pop Tart wouldn't be super square, we want our shape to also be rounded. And that's pretty much all the shapes that we need to be cut out. So let's cut them out. And these are the colors for the felts that I'm going to use, so I'm just going to cut out these shapes onto here. So I need 2 for the breading, for the front and the back, and then 1 of the smaller rectangles for the icing, which will only go on the front. Okay, now all the felt is cut out and in the right shape, so what we're gonna do next is the beading on top of the icing. I looked at all the beads that I have, and after giving it not much thought, I think I decided to go with these beads. I love the longer beads for sprinkles just because, you know, the traditional rainbow sprinkle shape is this longer length. You could use like normal really small beads or like even bigger crafting kids beads if you want. It really doesn't matter, but I like the shininess of this and the color, and I think it looks good all together. Now we're just choosing our embroidery thread, and if you don't want it to show too much, it's best to choose a color that's really close to the icing color. Oh wait, this color maybe. Honestly, it's pretty far off, but it's close enough. You know, it's better than using something like this or whatever that you could see more clearly. So something in the general same category as the color of your icing if you don't want it to show. And yeah, we're just going to sew every bead on individually. Oh, and before you even move any further, if you're using really small beads like me, the most important step is to make sure that your needle can go all the way through the bead. See this one? This one cannot go through, so I have to choose a very small needle. Okay, I think this one will work. Also, it'll help if you split the embroidery thread. You don't need all 6 strands, so I think I'm going to do 3 strands instead of 6. Okay, I'm done putting all the beads onto my frosting, and now using the same color embroidery thread that we used to put the beads on the frosting, we're now going to use it to sew the frosting onto one of the pieces of dough, I guess. You can use whatever stitch you want. I'm just going for a simple back stitch because it's like a straight line and there's nothing really fancy going on, and I don't really want it to be too noticeable. So yeah, I'm going to use a back stitch. It is getting dark. It might not look dark outside, but it's too dark for me to film just with the sunlight, so I turned my light on and now the lighting is bad. So I'm sorry for that. But also at this point I have stitched all around the frosting to sew it to like one of the pieces of dough, and now we're pretty close to the finish line. All we have to do is sew these 2 pieces of dough together, and you can do that with whatever stitch you want. I'm going to be using the blanket stitch, which is like a nice border stitch, And I want the border stitch to go all around, but obviously I don't want to close the whole thing. So what I think I'm going to do is kind of start at a corner and start by blanket stitching the two pieces together, go all the way around, and then when I get to this corner, I'm just going to start blanket stitching just the front piece. That way the border all looks the same and there's not like a weird empty gap right here, but we're not going to be sewing these two pieces together at the top, so we could still put our birth control inside. So here I am blanket stitching around the first 3 sides. I wouldn't necessarily call the blanket stitch a difficult stitch, but at the same time, if you've never embroidered before, it is a bit tricky to get down, and this is coming from me, someone who's had a few years of embroidery, but I've never done this stitch up until I did this project, so it was a bit confusing, but I also feel like I was overcomplicating it and maybe adding a few extra steps in my head, so maybe that's why I was having trouble with it, and then later on, when I got the hang of it, it became a little easier. So, I don't know, it may be harder for you, it may be easier for you, but if you are finding that you're having trouble with the blanket stitch and are looking for something easier, I recommend doing the whip stitch, which is another border stitch that gives off a very similar feel with all the lines going around that kind of replicates like a baked goods pressed fork look. So I will link that tutorial below as well for both the blanket stitch and also the whip stitch. Then once you reach the corner right before that last side of the Pop Tart that you need to make blanket stitches along, just remember that we don't want to stitch through both of the panels at this point. We want to keep it open, so only make the blanket stitch through the top panel. Alright, here it is! It's so cute! It's a Pop Tart. It literally looks like a Pop Tart. We got the little fork presses, whatever you call those things, the icing, the sprinkles, and it's a really good size. I thought it would turn out a little big for some reason, maybe because it looks big, but honestly, it's a pretty nice size. If you remember, we made a seam allowance at the beginning on the paper when we traced it, and then we traced a bigger rectangle around it. That's what this was for. It's off-brand. It's Walmart, Great Value, or whatever brand they have there. I love Walmart, by the way, but it's off-brand. If I make myself another one, it will be blueberry muffin themed. So maybe like a darker crust or dough, and then like a bluish, lavenderish icing. I think that would be so cute with like white beads. Ooh, maybe I should do that. If I do that, maybe I'll make like an actual tutorial for this that isn't as chaotic as this video. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed watching me make this felt birth control pill packet Pop Tart cover for the first time. And if you tried to follow along, or if you were inspired by this craft and made some other craft of your own, I hope it went well for you, and please feel free to send me a picture of it. I love seeing other people's crafts, especially if they're inspired by or created from one of my videos. So this is my Instagram, and it'll also be at the end of this video, but yeah, please feel free to send me pictures. I love seeing other people's crafts. Thank you so much once again for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye!